Pre-2010s, revenge films typically took two distinctive shapes. The first, an often follically challenged man, is scorned and vows to take revenge. We see him busting down doors, gun in hand, shooting left, right, and center at some other guy who is usually a problematic racial stereotype, who operates as the antithesis of Western values, and is wearing a less cool leather jacket. Human trafficker, thief, dog murderer, etc. The parameters are clean and the morals patriotic. Significantly, the lead character in these type of action-heavy revenge flicks is always a man. Think Taken, John Wick, Death Wish, or more controversial fare like Gaspar Noé's Irreversible or Park Chan-wook's Old Boy. The second notable style of Yesterdecade and beyond were the male-directed SA revenge films that saw a woman used and abused, but getting her own revenge, like I Spit on Your Grave. Hot tour, spit on that grave. They tended to be as violent and bloody as the former, if a little messier and less aspirational. But things have changed a fair amount over the last decade or two, with more women in writing and directing roles stepping in to tell their own stories and explore revenge through a feminine lens. We are no longer just the victims or protagonists in revenge stories created by men, but the creators ourselves. And that's what we're going to look at today. What does the revenge genre look like when the masculinity of the genre is removed and femininity takes center stage? Firstly, hello, welcome back. It's me, it's Rachel, it's Chelly, it's Girl on Film, however you would like to address me. We're back in business, I hope, doing lots of fun stuff on the channel at the moment, and it would make a huge difference to me if you could click that little like button, click that little subscribe button, click the like button, click the subscribe button. Not a good Trump. Also, horribly inappropriate video to do a Trump impression. But it would make a really big difference, so please stick around and subscribe. And one significant thing to address, there is a word that I need to use a lot in this video that I can't say on YouTube. It rhymes with grape. And I will be substituting it out to just say essay. That considered, this is a content warning for the rest of the video because we are going to talk about some pretty gnarly stuff today. On with it. Even without lead female characters, I find it really interesting that in many classic revenge films, the revenge is still motivated by harm done to a woman. A man's wife is killed, his daughter is kidnapped, his partner SA'd. It's not often that the inciting incident is physical harm done to the man, but it's his emotional response to the treatment of the women around him that we focus on. He is the victim in a sense because something he loves, or dare I say owns, has been damaged or taken from him. And it brings into question this idea of owning and protecting women as if they can't protect themselves. Why could Taken not be the journey of a daughter breaking herself out of her trafficking predicament? Likely because a large part of the American audience still hold reasonably traditional values that see a man protecting his family as more commercially appealing. It's considered honorable in the American value system as a man to protect the women in your family and community. But when that's the basis of these types of stories, it's the female body that is sacrificed in order for the male character to begin his journey. And we begin to understand women's role in life as props in men's lives. It's unintentional objectification that probably began with good intention, but the lovely lady becomes an object nonetheless. When we think of female revenge movies, sadly that often means we think of the SA revenge genre. Widely considered the most heinous crime against women committed predominantly by men. But somewhat at odds with that fact, all the most famous SA revenge films are made by male filmmakers. So what's up with that? What's up? So what's up with that? Nope. Right from Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring through Wes Craven's Last House on the Left and Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, male filmmakers have chosen to frame stories of revenge around a woman's assault. While I won't argue about the objective qualities of these films because they're all good, well acted, edited, and engaging, I do find them very distasteful and disturbing. Irreversible especially contains probably the most unpleasant scene I have ever watched. It's ruthless and painfully real in its depiction of violent assault, and the film itself seems to take pleasure in the slowly drawn out humiliation of Monica Bellucci's Alex. Yet all this pain and suffering is simply a catalyst for the further violence to come. How Alex feels after this assault is irrelevant. In fact, we never even see her again chronologically, only her mutilated face as she's wheeled away in a stretcher. These films all see female victims, but it's her father or partner who takes it upon himself to bring down the villains. We're told that how he reacts matters most by focusing on him. The crimes against female bodies in these films are mere fuel for a more galvanizing story of masculine turmoil. And I can't help feel that the protagonist's need for revenge enhances the idea of ownership over women. That the destruction of the woman as the object is the crime against them, invalidating their masculine urge to covet and protect. So they feel they must defend their place as owner or protector by harming the perpetrator, not by remaining by her side, providing care and support. Miyazaki's I Spit on Your Grave and Paul Verhoeven's Elle are also instilled in the canon of essay revenge films. And these two stories differ slightly from the three I already mentioned, as they see the female characters taking revenge into their own hands, but still at the behest of male creators. Creators who visualize it with erotic language and create coy seductresses of their victims, almost as if they are made stronger or more interesting by the damage gifted to them by their male aggressors. The tagline for I Spit on Your Grave was, "After it was all over, she waited, then she struck in a way that only a woman can." Like, shut the f*** up. Why are we trying to play this like it's an empowering film? Like, she's not just an SA victim, she's an unbeatable girl boss SA victim, fighting the powers like only a girl boss can. Why male filmmakers are so set on telling these stories is something of a mystery, although I do try to unfurl it in my video Why Do We Like to Watch Hot Girls Die? From shock value to audience pity to fetishistic violence, we dig into a lot of conclusions in that video, so why don't you go ahead and check it out. All that said, men aren't the only ones creating essay revenge flicks, although they undoubtedly made the genre films that achieved the most mainstream access and acclaim first. With the likes of Monster, American Mary, and Revenge, we've seen women tackle similar tales that present victims enacting payback by various vicious means. These films are in many ways as shocking and violent as the various revenge films that came before them, but they were all written and directed by women. And how does this archetypal story differ in the hands of female creators when the presentation is so similar? What nuances do the female filmmakers bring? I often cite intent or perspective as the main difference, but there are more tangible qualities to essay scenes directed by men and by women that we can analyze here. The shit I sat through for this video was rough, guys. Some of the key things that I noticed were that essay scenes in SA revenge films directed by women in Revenge, Monster, and American Mary were much shorter, like minutes at most. There's no nudity or even toplessness in any of these, and that to me felt super significant. The camera is not sexualizing the body at all. Instead, the directors choose to focus mostly on the face, with quick close-ups of other body parts like hands or the aggressor's hips. The scenes are still horrific to watch, but much of what is taking place is implied, using audio or cutting to B-roll. In Revenge and American Mary, the majority of the actual act happens off-screen, both hard cutting to the emotional aftermath. Compare that to Last House on the Left, Flesh and Blood, Irreversible. We're talking 5 to 25 minutes of constant assault. Scenes are dragged out with repeated escapes, captures, tauntings, and beatings. There's full nudity and exposed breasts. My sworn enemy, Paul Verhoeven, is obsessed with having scenes in his films where women's tops or dresses are torn off of them. It appears in every single one of his movies. Once you start noticing it, it becomes unforgivable. There's also so much more violence when men are behind the camera. Adding insult to injury, the characters are naked and wounded as we watch their drawn out suffering. These films aren't about the destruction SA causes to a life. They're about the destruction of the female body as a form of twisted entertainment. It's so blatant that this is what they think is interesting about SA, the act itself, which differs so much, thankfully, from the female directors. Side note, speaking about my best friend, Paulie V, I have such an intense love-hate relationship with Paul Verhoeven, and I actually have a Men Writing Women episode on him that I have already made, but I had to do a huge amount of censorship with it, so I wasn't able to post it. Again, I've talked about this in several videos and recommend the aforementioned Hot Girls Die video and My Baby Girl is the Female Gaze video, but it merits repeating here. This may be hard for certain people to understand, but even when the final product is for the most part similar, it does matter who made the thing. I don't care what directorial brilliance Paul Verhoeven can bring to a woman's assault, based, by the way, on a novel also written by a man. I don't care if Miyazaki had good intentions. I don't care at this current point in time where men dominate both the film industry and the world what they have to artistically express about the assault of women. It matters to me that women are behind the camera because they are channeling a lived experience. Specifically the assault of women, not assault in general, because obviously that does happen to men too, and men absolutely should be making films about that experience. Although it is relevant that it is statistically far more likely for it to happen to you if you are a woman, and for the perpetrator to be a man, regardless of the gender of the victim. It matters to me that the woman making the film might be healing or processing something within herself that actually happened to her. It matters that she fought statistical odds to get a feature funded and distributed. Seeing SA on screen will always be awful, so it's much of what we don't see that matters. And while it's a good thing that women are finally taking the helm of SA revenge stories, once told predominantly by men, we're also managing to evolve the revenge genre into something entirely fresh. Feminine revenge is so much broader than assault and bloody retribution. So what of revenge stories that don't center physical assault? What of revenge stories where the crime, if there even is one, assaults other less physical and tangible aspects of femininity? 2014's Gone Girl is an intriguing twist on the trope, as the antagonist in the revenge plot, Nick Dunn, hasn't really committed an obvious crime. Certainly not a legal one, as in an illegal one. A legal crime is an illegal act. I am a lawyer. Amy Dunn punishes her husband Nick because she feels he's neglected her. There are some distinct transgressions, such as Nick cheating, but that aside, he was no more than an asshole underappreciating his wife and not brave enough to end things. His crime is ambiguous, and this creates immediate levels of depth within the story. Who do we root for, and how do men and women see this story differently? Depending on how you look at the film, Amy Dunn is either pure evil, putting her husband through endless torture when she could just leave him, or she's a complete baddie for not taking male iniquity lying down. As the famous Cool Girl monologue states, Amy Dunn is over being hot and understanding, letting men do whatever they want. even if her methods to achieving this, such as kidnapping herself, framing Nick for murder, and framing her ex-boyfriend for SA, may be questionable. Gone Girl is a story where gender plays an immensely important role in the plot, as we have an instant understanding of who both Amy and Nick are by way of their established roles as husband and wife. Amy is a housewife, beautiful and delicate and perceived as a loving partner, and she is cunning enough to take advantage of this image. If Nick were the one wanting revenge on his partner, he'd likely lean into the advantages of physical strength and wouldn't necessarily have to seek avenues of revenge beyond physical harm. Amy doesn't have the advantage of being a strong 6'3" man, so she has to come up with something that plays into her hand. Amy Dunn's revenge is calculated, calm, and absolutely vicious. It's important to note that though the film is directed by David Fincher, the screenplay and original book are written by Gillian Flynn, a brilliant writer whose work often explores and critiques feminine behaviours. And in writing this character, she's not attempting to create an objective hero, but explore some of our darker desires as women as a response to subjugation, and explore them in a way specifically relevant to a middle-class housewife. Someone who is not violent, reactive, or short-tempered, but thoughtful and patient. This isn't a woman who is prepared to end up dead or in jail for the sake of one righteous bullet through the chest of her enemy. She wants to torment him from afar, knowing the game is being played on her terms. It could be argued by me now that women are encouraged throughout their lives to engage more with their emotions than men are. So a psychological or emotional form of revenge may be more satisfactory for female characters and viewers than the physical violence we see in male-led revenge films. The revenge is based in what Amy values, which is not physical strength or power, but sanity and emotional stability. And yes, she does kill someone in the film, but even that is because she only needs him dead in order to continue her psychological revenge saga on her beautiful husband, Nick. Moving away from female-led revenge, I want to discuss one of my favourite releases in the last few years. The Western is a typical backdrop for a revenge tale, the likes of Django Unchained or True Grit, and most recently in the Western revenge genre, Jane Campion's Power of the Dog. Power of the Dog centres around Phil, a cud-chewing country cowboy, his sister-in-law Rose, and her son Peter. Rose and Phil have an instant discomfort around each other, and in order to torment and antagonize Rose further, Phil decides to develop a close relationship with Peter. Peter is an effeminate boy, first shown to us making paper flowers and crying in his mother's arms. Phil, who is partially privy to this, is cruel and critical of Peter's weak, effeminate traits. It is hard to say if he's coded as gay or just feminine. Either way, he does not belong in this harsh Western world. Eventually, and significant spoilers ahead, Peter takes advantage of Phil's attempts to mentor him and teach him the ways of the ranch, and uses this developing closeness in order to expose him to the poison anthrax. Chiranthrax. In his arrogance, Phil believed that they had developed a relationship surpassing that of Peter and his mother. But as we all know, you cannot keep a young queer and their mother apart. And by poisoning Phil, Peter can finally relieve his mother Rose of Phil's torment. Having the final victor in a Western be a quiet, femme, and possibly queer boy who uses his own perceived naivety against the traditionally masculine lead is a liberating and exhilarating resolution. It's rare to see characters like this triumph on screen, or even, sadly, in the real world, which is in many ways still built for the traditional man. And Power of the Dog unintentionally raises a discussion of good representation. Peter ultimately is a murderer, and some would argue that this isn't the positive queer representation that we should be consuming. But it's a representation, more importantly, of queer anger, patience, and vengeance. Or, depending on how you look at it, feminine vengeance. As in Michaela Cole's incredible I May Destroy You, which I'll discuss more later, Power of the Dog explores territory we are often uncomfortable with and feel guilty or ashamed of desiring. It's a revenge fantasy on masculinity itself. And that, to me, is good representation because it's honest and unashamed of its desire to see those who have held female, femme, or queer people down facing our wrath. And boy, do we have wrath. I have wrath. No, stop it. By the by, if you're interested in reading more of my thoughts on this film, you can check out this Pantograph Punch review that I wrote when it came out, which I've linked in the bio. Now, back to the girls. The films we've discussed so far all ultimately bring their antagonists to Heaven's Gate in order to give the lead characters closure. Violence and death are the easiest answers to the most complicated quandaries and sometimes necessary for survival, full stop. But recently we've seen the emergence of several films and TV shows that have strayed even further from the established norms of the genre, combining the old and the new sensibilities to bring about something entirely fresh. Fresh! Why didn't I talk about Fresh in this video? I love that movie so much. It's genuinely one of my favorite films. And I have a video about it, which not many people have seen, so please go and watch that after this. Promising Young Woman, The Nightingale, and the TV show I May Destroy You are all SA revenge stories, but they take back the SA narrative from men, and it's fascinating how different the outcomes are. No guns, no violence, no peacocking. There is no final fatal act at all. In these three stories, the leading women come out on top in unconventional ways that may not provide the viewer with the expected catharsis. In 2020's Promising Young Woman, Cassie has become fixated on avenging the death of her best friend Nina, who was essayed by a college classmate and subsequently took her own life. Among other things, Cassie's revenge involves making a female classmate who hadn't believed Nina at the time believe that she too has been drunkenly assaulted, and pretending to kidnap the daughter of the female college dean who had dismissed the essay allegation. But ultimately, Cassie's revenge takes shape in the form of her own death, allowing her to finally see Nina's aggressor behind bars. These final moments of the film, which reveal that Cassie had prepared to die, even planned it, divided audience on what this said about female suffering. Some people vehemently expressing that they found the ending insulting, and only further harmed women in implying that they can't win without immense suffering or at all. Another film I have thought about a lot in its presentation of revenge is Jennifer Kent's The Nightingale. To cut a long story very short, in 1800s Australia, an Irish woman named Claire is assaulted and her husband and baby murdered by Hawkins, the lieutenant overseeing the colonial force they have travelled to Australia with. She tracks him down with the help of Billy, an Aboriginal tracker who has suffered at the hands of the colonizers himself, and finally confronts him. But rather than kill or injure Hawkins, she recounts his crimes in a room of his peers and superiors, and then leaves. Her revenge is simply to expose him, despite the grotesqueness of the crimes he inflicted on her and her family. The incredible comedy drama from Michaela Cole, I May Destroy You, also explores the aftermath of an assault, when Arabella was drugged and taken advantage of on a night out. For anyone who's experienced similar trauma, it is a crushing exploration of guilt, regret, empowerment, delusion, and SA, that probably more so than anything before it captures the emotional aftermath of sexual assault. In the final episode, Arabella churns through a series of fantasy scenarios that see her drugging, beating, and killing her aggressor, sleeping with him consensually, and comforting him for assaulting her. And in reality, it seems Arabella has done nothing. No real revenge in the way that we have been conditioned to expect to see it. No confrontation ever occurs, as her assailant was a stranger. No confrontation ever occurs, as her assailant is a stranger she had no way of finding, which also in some ways means no closure. Don't mind me just crying, reading my own script. Those fantasies are sometimes all we get. They are our acts of revenge, as tangible revenge is rarely an option. If we can't have the catharsis of beating the ever-living shit out of someone who took your peace and your joy and your sense of security, at least you can imagine it with no further consequence. Because the reality is, even if you found the person who hurt you, you could be putting yourself in further danger. Or by enacting any type of physical revenge, you could be opening yourself up to potential legal punishment. There is such a sensitivity to Cole's examination of revenge, and something that feels so innately female about the difficulty to commit to hatred and still desperately seek out the potential for good in those dark moments. She wants to imagine he was sweet. She wants to hurt him, wants to forgive him, wants him to feel guilty. It's not the story of a woman wanting to directly avenge some wrongdoing. It's an examination of the way assault can shatter your certainty of who you are and what you want. Similarly, I feel with Promising Young Woman. The film is not a lesson lecturing us on how to handle the realities of assault, simply an expression of fantasy. A fantasy that says, well, what if I died to get you back? What if I went that far? And in the fantasy, it feels good because you get the rightful outcome without the brutal reality. In all three of these stories, we're forced to confront the complexity of revenge and wrestle with the fact it doesn't always look the way we want it to. Sometimes the victim stays a victim. Often revenge can never bring back what we've lost, and most of the time we don't even know what we want or need to heal. There is no fatality to conclude. This is reality. Now, I have been advised by my lawyers and my mother to omit this section, but I think it's important to say that one of the reasons that I love these stories is because during some dark times in my life, I have shared that desire for vengeance. It's a normal part of life to want revenge on the people that have hurt us, whether you were bullied, abused, excluded. But significantly, at times in my own life where I have wanted to see the comeuppance of people that have hurt me, in reality, I have done nothing. I would dream of smashing up my ex's van or ripping out all of his teeth, just normal stuff. But then I would wake up and go on with my day. And that lack of real action is partially because I don't want to seem crazy, and partially because of a genuine empathy that I have for people that have hurt me and my own discomfort in hating them. And this is the reason that I love the various explorations of female rage that we have looked at. When someone hurts me, I flip-flop constantly in my response to them, and I can rarely commit to a singular feeling. A desire for revenge is not a clear-cut path, and I think a lot of us want to reject our desire for it because it's painful, and because we want to be above that way of thinking. Men have been able to express their desire for revenge for years and years on screen, and it's been seen as admirable and moral. But it's vulnerable of femme and female filmmakers to express these desires when they may be perceived as petty, evil, or psychotic. It's a relief to see those cruel, outlandish, stereotypically crazy ideas realized on screen, because as embarrassing as it is to admit it, they can be relatable. It doesn't mean that you, in enjoying these stories, are solidifying yourself as a vengeful person. You're just allowing yourself to explore one avenue in an incredibly complex map of hurt. When reality requires you to just get on with it, seeing women on screen lean into violent fantasies or bare minimum break the awkwardness of polite society and acknowledge what has happened to them, whatever that may be, it's so important to have that, just to be able to live that out for a moment. Sorry, camera decided to die just as I was finishing filming the video. So, as we've discussed, revenge served by one more feminine doesn't always look the same as the revenge we've come to expect. Gun-toting bald men on the hunt for the killers of their wives and daughters, or inexplicable martial arts abilities materializing when someone double-crosses a middle-aged white guy in America. But women, queer people, feminine people, people who cannot rely on masculinity or physical strength, have different intentions with their revenge, not always to kill or maim or even confront, and therefore different methods and different outcomes. Some unsatisfactory because they still require female suffering or exist only as a fantasy, and some deliciously satisfying as we finally see someone soft, femme or queer come out on top. But both are equally as important to see on our screens, as they allow us to observe a full spectrum of feminine vengeance. And there we have it, folks. Thank you for listening. I hope you are able to engage with this video with nuance, evidence, and empathy, and that it isn't too difficult to watch. It was undoubtedly fairly difficult to film in a few moments. I look forward to being called all manner of misogynistic slurs if this reaches the wrong crowd. Otherwise, stick around, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and with that, I bid you a peaceful week. My general tone of being is so not compatible with the topics that I talk about. Do you guys see that massive fly? You are my sworn enemy!